This time, we're on the Western Lines of Scotland route, which has been one of my favourites for a long time now. I was initially considering driving a Southern Railway U-Class 260, but ended up going with a certain LMS 2P Class 440 instead. Although I will be talking about TSW6 later in this video, I decided to not record any new TSW footage this time. Incidentally, I'm pretty sure this is the first time I've properly driven the LMS 2P. One of the reasons why I do these random thoughts videos is to give myself an opportunity to shine the spotlight on lesser used locomotives in the collection. This week, I was rather stressed and overwhelmed, more so than usual, it seemed. On the morning of Thursday, July 30, things boiled over in my head again, so I ended up thinking fuck it and listening to the entirety of Tony Basil's self-titled second album of 1983. In a way, it's ironic that the album opener, Over My Head, is my absolute favourite song from Tony Basil, seeing as the lyrics are somewhat intense and emotional, but the general theme of that song is still relatable to me. And of course I can't forget that guitar solo. By contrast, the second track, Do You Wanna Dance, is a much louder and more upbeat song to which I often look for a pick-me-up, if you will. As an aside, and to be honest, I don't like the cover art for either of Tony's two albums. For one thing, I've never known what to make of her hairstyle on the cover of Self-Titled, nor would I know what to do if I was given the opportunity to redesign both albums' covers. In any case, I have a plan to make a music video, using footage in TS Classic, for Over My Head, and of course that will use the extended mix that goes for 7 minutes and 30 seconds. But the video won't be made for a fair while yet because it's intended to coincide with Tony's birthday in late September. This might sound dumb, but I feel that I should say it anyway. I was briefly considering biting the bullet and picking up WCML Trent Valley for TSW6 soon, just to get a planned review of that route out of the way sooner, and leave the North London line or the TSW7 Core UK route as the last hurrah, so to speak. The rational side of me won out in the end, and I suppose it doesn't help that the West Coast Mainline Trent Valley route is ridiculously expensive at 69 New Zealand dollars. I can't remember the equivalent in euros or pounds. On the one hand, I was wondering if I should just cut my losses and leave Liberec to Stara Paka as my last TSW review. But on the other hand, I'm still looking forward to reviewing the North London line plus Richmond extension at some point, since I now have something of a personal connection to that part of the London Overground. More specifically, the section from Highbury and Islington to Willesden Junction, and West Hampstead Station in particular. On the topic of TSW, and incredible trains in particular, I am appreciative of Mr. Johannes reaching out to say that he thought mine was a fair review of Thames Valley branches. Years ago, around 2019 to be specific, I had this idea to write an episodic show filmed on the Coniston branch in TS Classic, and wrote enough script for at least one full season of the show. It was inspired by shows like the Dark Railway series, Rails to Refuge, and, to a lesser extent, Over the Hills, but my series, which was going to be called Tales from Coniston, never went ahead in its initial state because, at the time of writing those scripts, I hated the sound of my own voice. All these years later, it's a different story, and I'm wondering about reworking the script of at least one episode from the planned series, then making it as a pilot episode, of sorts. However, what I'm not making are any promises on when or if the pilot episode will come to fruition. A few years ago, I realised that SpongeBob SquarePants and Thomas the Tank Engine have something in common, in a manner of speaking. In my opinion, both shows had pretty good starts to them, and things were still good for the first few seasons, but they gradually went further and further south after season 5. When it comes to SpongeBob, my preference will always be with the first 3 seasons, with 2 of my favourite episodes from that era being Nasty Patty and Snowball Effect. As for Thomas, I reckon that show really hit its peak in season 5, although, to be fair, I still have a lot of time for the first 4 seasons. Anything after season 5 doesn't really interest me all that much anymore, and to be honest, that goes for the Brenner seasons as well. Don't even get me started on that BWBA and AEG crap. Anyway, despite my general lack of interest in most of his TV shows run, I've still got a lot of time for the North Western Railway's number 1, and of course, I can't forget the original Railway series books. My favourite of which is a tie between number 19, Mountain Engines, and number 25, Duke the Lost Engine. Thinking back to Tony Basil for a moment, I wanted to say something about Go For The Burn. That's the 3rd track on her self-titled album. Go For The Burn is a very energetic song with a bouncy drum track, catchy synth lines, and the occasional roaring guitar, but there are a couple of aspects to that song that still puzzle me somewhat. For one thing, I haven't been able to figure out what the title phrase and general lyrics mean. In saying that, I wonder if it's meant to be a conversation between 2 different characters, just like in Tony's other song, Easy For You To Say, and I reckon she sounds like she's rapping in the verses, then going to a more conventional singing style for the pre-chorus and chorus, although the latter is dominated by backup singers. In any case, I always had the sense that the song should have been longer than 4 minutes, since it feels like the musicians and producer, or whoever, were trying to cram too much into the second half of the song, in the sense that the bridge feels too short and the outro feels rushed. If the song was longer than 4 minutes, I reckon it would have had less of an issue where pacing is concerned. When I was setting up to record footage of the LMS-2P on the Port Road, I ended up randomly flicking on the radio just as the Stevie Nicks song, Talk To Me, not to be confused with an Olivia Dean song of the same name, started playing. Generally, I'm not interested in the overexposed Fleetwood Mac, or even Stevie Nicks on her own, but there are 2 songs of hers that I still like, and Talk To Me is one of them. Historically, I thought that the overall sound of Talk To Me was reminiscent of Def Leppard, but now I realise how ridiculous that comparison sounds. In any case, I always interpreted the aforementioned Stevie Nicks song as being about a woman offering herself as a shoulder for a sad friend to cry on, but apparently, the song is actually about a woman encouraging her man to open up about the affair that he's been having. I don't know what to make of that, to be honest. Though I will say that, even though I've never been in a relationship myself, I think the idea of cheating on someone is not kosher. Incidentally, the Stevie Nicks song was later followed on that radio station by the only Glenn Frey song that I know and like. The song in question is You Belong to the City, and I particularly like that one for the stomping drum track and well done saxophone work, not to mention the track's overall atmosphere. If anyone's curious, I have reviews planned for the London and South Western Railway O2 class from Caledonia Works, and the Great Western Railway Star class from Precision Locomotive Developments, but I don't know when those reviews will be done. All I know is that they'll be ready when they're ready. I'll be going on holiday to the west coast of the South Island in September, to try and film the DX locomotives while they're still running, so I'm trying to save as much money for that trip as I can. In the meantime, I'll continue to work on videos at my own pace, and trying to take breaks to rest when I can, like over the coming weekend for instance. As boring as the rail scene in Tauranga can be these days, I still occasionally go out to film the rail activity anyway because it is at least a good way to get out of the house for an hour or 3. If you've stuck around to the end of the video, you win Yellow Citrus that got thrown in 2 toilets and wears clothing from a well-known fashion brand. It's the Lululemon.